eyelids felt like sandpaper against my eyeballs. Finals week was cruel, sucking every last drop of energy from me. Textbooks blurred into a kaleidoscope of indecipherable words, and the inside of my eyelids held a constant replay of flashing equations and historical dates. Sleep, that elusive luxury, had become a distant memory. Desperate for even a sliver of rest, I scoured the internet for miracle cures. Sleeping pills gave me night terrors. Meditation apps. My brain refused to shut down. White noise machines just added another layer of sound to my internal screaming. Then I stumbled upon it, SomniaStream, a website with a minimalist, almost sterile design, promising rest without sleep. Intrigued, I clicked deeper. The concept was bizarre, live streams of real people sleeping. The website claimed that observing someone else's peaceful slumber could somehow induce relaxation in the viewer. Skeptical, but clutching at straws, I signed up. The streamer selection was limited, with only a handful of options. One profile picture showed a blonde woman with a serene smile, labeled Lullaby Laura. Another displayed a muscular man with a shaved head, aptly named Iron Mike Sleeps. After some deliberation, I went with Dreamweaver Dan, a guy with kind eyes and a beard that looked like a comfortable pillow. Clicking connect, I held my breath. The screen flickered, and then I was transported into a dimly lit bedroom. Dan lay sprawled on his back, the rhythmic rise and fall of his chest the only sign of life. Soft snores filled the room, surprisingly oddly comforting. I stared at him, willing myself to relax. My eyelids felt heavy, and for a blissful moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, this would work. Then it started. A flicker in the corner of the screen. A shadow, almost imperceptible, darting across the wall. I blinked, thinking it was just a trick of the light. But it happened again, this time more pronounced. A long, spindly limb stretched across the wall, followed by a grotesque, hunchbacked figure that scuttled out of sight. Panic jolted me awake, and I imagined it. My heart pounded against my ribs as I stared at Dan's peaceful face. There was nothing on the screen but him, chest rising and falling rhythmically. But the memory of the shadow lingered, a cold prickle on my skin. I debated disconnecting, but a morbid curiosity kept me glued to the screen. Maybe it was a one-time glitch. Maybe Dan just had a really creepy nightlight. As the night wore on, the dreams became more vivid. Dan's face contorted into a mask of terror, sweat beading on his forehead. He whimpered in his sleep, muttering incoherent phrases. Then came the whispers. Faint at first, barely audible over his ragged breaths, they grew louder, a chorus of voices speaking in a language I didn't understand, yet felt chillingly familiar. The shadows became more frequent, bolder. They stretched across Dan's sleeping form, morphing into grotesque shapes that defied reality. A long, clawed hand reached out from the corner of the screen, seeming to brush against the camera lens. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to tear my eyes away. It was like watching a train crash in slow motion, knowing you couldn't stop it but unable to look away. Then, abruptly, Dan bolted upright, a scream tearing from his throat. His eyes snapped open, wide with terror. He stared directly at the camera, his scream cut short as a look of pure horror washed over his face. The room plunged into darkness, the connection abruptly cut. Silence. My room, previously bathed in the blue glow of the computer screen, felt suffocatingly dark. I scrambled for my phone, the familiar light offering a sliver of comfort. But the terror wasn't over. As my eyes adjusted, I saw it, a faint shadow shifting in the corner of my room, mimicking the one I had seen on the stream. My breath caught in my throat. It was just a trick of the light, surely. Just a figment of my overactive imagination. Then, a low, guttural voice echoed in my room, the same voice from the whispers. It spoke in that same unknown language, yet I somehow understood its meaning. It spoke of hunger, of darkness, of a world where sleep and wakefulness were blurred lines. A cold sweat drenched my clothes. I was trapped. The line between the stream and my reality had blurred, and whatever horror had plagued Dan in his dreams was now here, in my room. Panic fueled my next actions. I ripped the power cable from the computer, the screen fizzing out in a final burst of static. But the voice continued, now seemingly emanating from everywhere and nowhere at once. It circled me, a chilling symphony of dread. My fight-or-flight instincts kicked in, and I bolted for the door, tripping over stray textbooks and knocking over a lamp in my haste. The apartment hallway offered no solace. The flickering overhead lights seemed to pulse with an unnatural rhythm, and the shadows stretched into grotesque shapes on the walls. The voice followed me, closer now, a rasping whisper against my ear. Driven by pure terror, I didn't stop running until I reached the stairwell. The concrete steps were cold and unforgiving beneath my bare feet, but I didn't dare stop. I pounded down the stairs, each step a desperate attempt to outrun the unseen horror. Bursting out of the building, I stumbled into the cool night air. The moon cast an eerie glow on the deserted street, turning every alleyway into a potential hiding place for the entity. The voice was fainter now, but it persisted, a constant reminder of the nightmare I couldn't wake from. My phone, clutched tightly in my hand, offered a flickering beacon of hope. Maybe if I could reach someone, call for help, this nightmare would end. But as I fumbled to unlock the screen, a notification popped up. A new message from Somnia Stream. IT was a single sentence, chillingly simple. Welcome to the dreamscape. The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering on the pavement. My vision swam, and a wave of dizziness threatened to topple me. The voice, once a chilling whisper, now roared in my ears, a cacophony of unintelligible screams. Then, with a jolt, I was back in Dan's room. Or was it mine? The lines had blurred beyond recognition. The room seemed to pulsate with a sickly green light, and the shadows writhed on the walls like living things. Dan was gone. In his place, on the bed, lay a figure shrouded in darkness. It pulsed with a malevolent energy, and the whispers emanated from it in waves. I stumbled back, fear turning my legs to jelly. The entity shifted, a single glowing red eye peering from the darkness. It spoke, its voice a distorted amalgamation of countless voices, each dripping with malice. You shouldn't have watched, it rasped. Now you become part of the collection. Terror locked my jaw, rendering me speechless. I could only watch in horror as tendrils of darkness reached out from the figure, wrapping around me like icy serpents. As the darkness consumed me, a single thought echoed in my mind. I hadn't found sleep, it had found me. And in the dreamscape, there was no waking up. The last thing I saw was the notification on my phone screen, glowing ominously in the dark. Dreamweaver Dan is now live. The world dissolved into a swirling vortex of fragmented images. Memories of my life, childhood birthday parties, stolen glances at crushes, the sting of exam failures, flashed before me in a chaotic montage. Then, abruptly, the chaos subsided. I found myself standing in a familiar place, my dorm room, but somehow different. The air crackled with a strange energy, and the fluorescent lights hummed with an unsettling thrum. The shadows in the corners seemed denser, pulsating with an unseen life. Panic clawed at my throat. Was this real, or just another twisted nightmare? A low moan echoed from the corner, and I instinctively whipped my head around. There, on my desk, lay my laptop. The Somnia Stream window flickered on the screen, displaying a live feed of my own room. My stomach lurched. I was trapped within the dreamscape, forced to witness the horror unfold from the perspective of my own body. The figure from Dan's dream, the one with the single glowing eye, materialized from the shadows. My own voice, distorted and filled with terror, screamed from the speakers as the darkness tendrils ensnared me. A cold, inhuman laughter filled the air, echoing from the laptop screen and seemingly resonating from within the room itself. The figure leaned closer, its single eye boring into mine through the screen. It spoke, the voice a chilling chorus of whispers. This is your punishment for intruding, it rasped. You will forever experience the terror you sought to observe. You will become a beacon, a living nightmare for others to witness. A wave of despair washed over me. Was this it? Was there no escape from this digital purgatory? But then, a flicker of defiance sparked within me. This wasn't over. I wouldn't become another victim in its collection. Scanning the distorted room, I noticed a familiar object nestled amongst my textbooks, my old Rubik's Cube. It was a silly childhood toy, but it was the only thing here that felt real, a tangible tether to my world. Desperate, I reached into the screen, my hand facing through the image of my own body and grasping the cube. As my fingers closed around the smooth plastic, a jolt of energy surged through me. The room flickered, the laughter momentarily faltered. A new voice, weak but determined, echoed from the speakers. It was my voice, but stronger, laced with a newfound resolve. No, I rasped. This isn't over yet. The entity recoiled, its single eye flickering in surprise. It seemed, even in this digital nightmare, the will to fight back held some power. The room pulsed with a renewed energy, the shadows churning in agitation. With a surge of adrenaline, I began twisting the Rubik's Cube. Each click and shift felt amplified within the dreamscape, like a defiance against the very fabric of this twisted reality. As the colors aligned, forming a perfect solid surface, the distorted room shimmered. The laughter grew frantic, morphing into a series of ear-splitting shrieks. The figure writhed, its tendrils flailing in a desperate attempt to hold on to me. But the pull towards reality was growing stronger. With a final, deafening crack, the world dissolved into a blinding white light. When my vision cleared, I found myself back in my own dorm room, slumped over my desk. The laptop screen was dark, the Somnia Stream notification vanished. My body ached, every muscle screaming in protest. But I was alive. I had escaped the dreamscape. Whether it was the cube, my own will, or a combination of both, I didn't care. Relief washed over me in a tidal wave. I reached for my phone, fingers trembling. I needed to spread the word, to expose the website for the nightmare portal it truly was. Maybe my story could save someone from suffering the same fate as Dan and me.